the cardboard box pressed into Sarah's palms, its weight shifting with every step toward the glass doors. Behind her, the office continued its steady, rhythmic hum, a symphony of keyboards and low-voiced meetings that no longer included her. She reached the lobby and stopped. The air felt colder here, stripped of the purpose that had defined her mornings for years. She pushed through the heavy doors and stepped into the parking lot. The sun was bright, blindingly so, but it brought no warmth. She opened her trunk, set the box down next to a spare tire, and stared at the dark, hollow space. She climbed into the driver's seat and pulled up her bank app on her phone. The numbers on the screen were static, cold, and final. They showed exactly enough for next month's rent, and nothing more. She sat in the silence of the car, the engine off, listening to the metallic ticking of the cooling engine. The reality of the situation anchored itself in her chest. There was no severance. There was no backup plan. Only the quiet, growing pressure of the days ahead. 3 weeks bled into one another. Sarah sat before the glowing monitor until her eyes stung and blurred, clicking submit on applications that vanished into a digital void. No replies, no acknowledgements. The silence of the house intensified her focus on the screen. One evening, she closed the laptop and pulled a notebook onto the kitchen table. She listed every expense, then dragged her pen through lines that weren't essential, crossing out luxuries until only the barest necessities remained. The math was relentless. It left no room for error. She remembered a phrase about persistence, a concept that felt abstract until she looked at the dark room where her children slept. She needed a different path. She stood up, cleared a space on the table, and pulled out her smartphone. She propped the device against a stack of books, angled the lens toward her face, and tapped the screen. The recording light flickered. She took a breath, held the silence for a heartbeat, and spoke to the empty room. She was no longer waiting for an employer to choose her. She was starting the work herself. Sarah hit the upload button and watched the progress bar crawl to completion. She kept the laptop open on the kitchen island, the browser tab pinned. The first hour passed. She checked the screen. 1 view. She walked away, folded laundry, and returned. 3 views. She paced the small kitchen, the floorboards creaking under her weight, and checked again. 6 views. She sat down, her chin resting in her palm, and stared at the flat, horizontal line on the analytics dashboard. It did not move. It did not climb. It simply hovered there, a silent, static representation of her effort. She refreshed the page. The numbers stayed the same. She clicked through the settings, looking for a glitch, a server error, anything to explain why the world remained silent. There was nothing. The digital space was vast and entirely indifferent to her existence. She looked at the clock on the wall, the second hand ticking with agonizing regularity, mocking the lack of movement on her screen. She closed the lid, the darkness of the room pressing in, and felt the weight of that 6-view total settle over her shoulders like lead. The next video fared worse. 2 notifications pinged on her phone. Dislikes. The sharp, red bars on the analytics dashboard felt like a direct indictment. Sarah looked at the delete button, her cursor hovering over the command that would wipe the channel from existence. The house was cold. The silence of the kitchen amplified the sting of the rejection. She pushed the laptop away, but her hands stopped halfway across the table. Deleting meant returning to the void of the job boards. It meant surrendering to the uncertainty of her bank account. She pulled her smartphone back and opened the alarm settings. She dragged the dial to 5 a.m. A sharp, mechanical beep confirmed the time. She stood up, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on her face to shake off the fatigue. She did not look at the analytics again. She cleared the kitchen table, arranged the makeshift lighting, and checked the lens focus. The sun had not yet touched the horizon. She sat in the darkness, waiting for the alarm to sound, preparing to record another segment before the rest of the world woke up. She had chosen the path of repetition over the comfort of stopping. 6 months passed in a blur of early mornings and flickering lights. The routine was a cycle of filming, editing, and uploading that yielded no measurable growth. Outside the studio, the bank balance was failing. Each transaction at the grocery store became a calculation of pennies. Sarah stared at the screen as her account hit double digits. The rent was due in 3 days. She looked at her laptop, the only tool she had for editing, and then at her microphone, which produced static that ruined her audio quality. She walked to a local electronics shop. She placed the laptop on the counter, watched the clerk test the keys, and accepted the cash. She used the money to buy a professional-grade microphone. She walked back to her house with the new device in a small box, her bank account now effectively empty. She set the microphone on the kitchen table and plugged it into a borrowed, older machine. She sat down, adjusted the gain, and began the next recording. Her resolve did not waver with the lack of funds. It hardened. She had traded her comfort for the possibility of clarity, and she kept talking into the lens, waiting for the audience that remained invisible. The calendar turned, marking exactly 1 year of constant output. Sarah sat in her kitchen, clicking through her subscriber count. It remained stubbornly under 1,000. The screen glowed against her face, showing the same flat trajectory that had defined the last 12 months. Her phone vibrated with a message from a friend, then another. They arrived at the kitchen table, their voices low and measured. They looked at the tripod, the microphone, and the stack of notes, then back at her. "You have been at this for a year, Sarah. Nothing has changed. Why are you still doing this?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of concern and quiet judgment. Sarah did not look up from her screen. She did not defend the numbers or explain the process. She felt the urge to explain, to justify the hours lost and the money spent, but she stayed silent. She stood up, gathered her hard drive, and walked past them into the small room she used as a desk. She closed the door, blocking out the sound of their sighs. She sat down, pulled on her headphones, and began the first cut of a new video. The judgment from the other side of the door was just another background noise to be edited out. By the second year, the rhythm of the work shifted from frantic output to calculated refinement. Sarah stopped staring at the subscriber count and started opening the raw data. She spent hours scrolling through retention graphs, identifying the exact seconds where viewers clicked away. She noticed a spike in engagement whenever she simplified complex terms, and a sharp drop whenever she drifted into personal anecdotes. She acted on these findings immediately. She moved her desk to face the window, flooding the frame with natural light. She cut the intro sequences by half, tightening the pacing to keep the energy sharp from the first second. She revised her thumbnails, stripping away clutter until only the core value remained. The growth was not an explosion, but a slow, steady crawl upward. Each upload now functioned as an experiment, a controlled test of a new variable. For the first time, she saw the feedback loops begin to close. The comments shifted from generic greetings to specific questions about the content. She felt the machine of her own creation finally catching traction. She was no longer guessing. She was architecting a path, one data point at a time. Sarah uploaded the video on a Tuesday. It explained the mechanics of compound interest in a way she had spent weeks refining. For the first 72 hours, the response was measured. It hit 10,000 views, a respectable number that suggested her audience was listening, but nothing more. She went about her routine, dropping the kids at school, preparing the next script, and keeping her hands busy to avoid refreshing the dashboard. Then, Thursday morning arrived. She opened the app and the numbers were moving in real time. The count did not just grow, it blurred. Every time she blinked, the digits climbed by the thousands. The algorithm had found the signal it was searching for. It pushed her work into the feeds of people who had never heard her name. Comments flooded in, turning the notification bell into a constant, low-frequency hum. By the end of the week, the view count crossed 500,000. She sat back from the desk, the blue light of the screen illuminating her face. She had spent years trying to force the door open, but now, the momentum was carrying her forward without effort. The climb was no longer a struggle. It was a landslide. The inbox changed first. Where there had once been only spam and silence, there were now inquiries from financial firms and software developers. The scale of the offers was unlike anything she had navigated before. She opened a new tab on her browser and navigated to her analytics dashboard. The revenue tab displayed a 7-figure sum. It was not a projection or a goal. It was an audited reality. She pushed her chair back from the desk and stood up. The room was bright, quiet, and spacious. She walked to the window and looked out at the street below, then turned back to the screen. The numbers remained, steady and unmoving. She reached out and touched the glass of the monitor, tracing the digit that marked her milestone. The weight of the 3 years hit her at once. She did not cheer or cry. She simply breathed, feeling the air move in and out of her lungs. She had spent over 1,000 days in the same small kitchen, writing lists and recording segments in the dark. Now, the space around her felt different. The desk was sturdier. The equipment was silent. She looked at the bank balance again and accepted the change as a physical fact. Sarah turned away from the screen and crossed the room to her recording station. She placed the phone on the tripod and adjusted the height until the lens was level with her eyes. She thought back to the kitchen table, the notebook, and the crossed-out lines of her old life. She had not changed the world in those 3 years. She had changed her own trajectory through the simple, repetitive act of showing up. She tapped the record button. The small red light blinked, marking the start of a new cycle. She did not talk about the money or the subscribers. She looked directly into the camera and spoke the title of the video, Why I Never Quit. She laid out the reality of the process, the thousands of hours, the editing, the failures, and the refusal to stop moving. Success was not a finish line she had crossed. It was the desk. It was the light. It was the script she would write tomorrow. She finished the recording and hit upload. The progress bar moved across the screen, confirming the upload. She leaned back, looked at the empty space in front of her, and started planning the next segment. The work was only just beginning.